It's not black or white. It's not black or white. It's not black or white. With Tim Stevenson and Diane Blakely. Not black or white. It's not black or white with Tim Stevenson and Diane Blakely.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of It's Not Black or White. We're your co-host, Tim Stevenson.
And Diane Blakely.
And we have a special guest in the house today. I'm going to let you introduce this man.
I'm really excited about this because we have Dr. Richard Harris. Rick to me, of course. Professor from UC Irvine School of Medicine. We're really excited to talk a little bit about the study that you've been doing with Ibogaine and psychedelics. So a little different topic for us today. And
where do we start?
I know, where do we start?
Do we start with ayahuasca? Like, where do we start this conversation?
Well, I think what we'd like to do is maybe let you take it away, Rick, and talk a little bit about what the study involved and how far you've gotten through it and some of the results of it, ultimately, but maybe just tell the audience a little bit about the study itself.
Yeah, sure. My pleasure to be here. And I'm very happy to talk to you too about our study and some of the research that we're doing. I guess I'd have to take a step back and say the study that we're doing with Ibogaine is kind of brought about through studying shamanism, which is this ancient healing tradition that all cultures on the planet have. If you go back in time in that culture, you will find shamans, which are essentially the healers and the spiritual advisors of the tribe or civilization where they're present. And so Ibogaine comes out of that essentially. So that's a little bit of the background for it. So Ibogaine is a compound from a root in Africa. There's a shrub, Tabernath, Iboga, and Ibogaine comes from that shrub.
Got you.
And so the Witi tribe in Africa is the tribe that uses that Ibogaine for spiritual ceremonies. They also use it for hunting, like it gives people more energy and they can run longer and do more activity. And some people just take it, they microdose and just take it all the time.
Really?
Yeah.
Ibogaine.
Yeah.
And how do you take Ibogaine?
So you usually take it orally with, through the mouth. Okay. But there are injectables, I believe, but it's usually taken orally. So like as a pill. It comes from the bark of this shrub. Okay. And so some people will chew on the bark as well.
So you can't make it into a tea?
You probably could.
Like brew a tea with it if you could. I know a lot of teas come from bark, so like I imagine you could grind it, in one of those mill bowls, and then maybe
mortar pestle. Right? Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that could probably be done.
I might find a new tea.
Dan, what are you doing? She's like, well,
I'm having
about
tea.
this Ibogaine.
I'm having tea.
Hanging out in the kitchen, staring at the walls.
Frank's like, why are you working at 3 a.m. on breakfast?
Yeah. I'm having tea.
Wow. So what are the benefits of Ibogaine?
So it's really interesting. So it's been used for many, many years in Africa, but it hasn't really been studied scientifically. So a lot of the use has been based on just subjective reports of, trying it and experimenting it. It did used to be an antidepressant back in France in the early 1800s. So it was used in France for a while. Yep. It's actually illegal in the US to use it. It's a Schedule I compound. So you can't buy it at the store or the pharmacy.
Is it illegal because it has issues with people's heart, or is it illegal for just the medicinal or the hallucinogenics?
Interestingly, the medical establishment in the US says that these types of compounds have no medical value. However, that's largely because of the Drug Act that was passed in the 70s, early 70s by Nixon.
Oh, really?
Oh, and that Drug Act basically put the kibosh on all psychedelic studies and use and research. Although in the 50s and 60s, there was prominent research that was done with Ibogaine and a lot of other psychedelics showing that they did have medical value.
Right.
But then the Drug Act came along and there was the whole anti-drug movement.
Right.
And then the research just got shut down for, 4 decades.
Yeah, I was going to say 40 years. That's ridiculous.
How does that compare to marijuana? Like, it was that considered a psychedelic at any point?
Some people consider cannabis a psychedelic, and so
Gotcha.
that kind of gets into how you define psychedelics.
Okay.
So some people will say that cannabis is a psychedelic, but it's not classically what we normally think of as a classic psychedelic. So if you've
Gotcha.
heard of LSD
Right.
or
Acid or
magic
anything.
mushrooms,
Magic mushroom. Okay.
like those are more considered psychedelic, classic psychedelics.
Got you.
Like where you think you're something that you're not, like my friend Tara thought.
Oh,
she
when
was
you
Porky
see
Pig.
Dumbo floating through the ocean, you're like, where am I? Why are the walls talking to me? Yeah.
Right. And that doesn't generally happen smoking cannabis.
Maybe if you
I
get
don't
to
know.
the highest level, higher
Yeah.
levels,
Really?
there are,
It
and
will?
there are some people that do have those experiences with cannabis.
Well, being that I haven't even smoked a cigarette, I'm only
We're going off
talking about
forever,
those that
Diane.
know.
So we've heard.
So I've heard.
Yeah.
Okay, Frank, get out here.
Yeah.
That's what she got in her medicine cabinet.
Yeah. Wow, that's crazy. Okay, so illegal in the U.S.
Illegal in the U.S., no medical value. Now, however, in the last 10 years or so, there's been a renaissance in the study of psychedelics.
Got you.
It's a very interesting wave that's happened, but it's nonpartisan. Both Republicans and Democrats, a lot of them will be in favor of psychedelic research, thinking that there's some value in there.
Well, I know
And
Trump
a lot
just
of that-
signed something, didn't he?
And Trump just signed an executive order in April, and that was largely because of Ibogaine and its effects on military veterans
I think
that
that's
had
great.
PTSD.
Got you.
I'm all about giving him credit for stuff that I think is beneficial. So
Right.
he gets
Wow.
credit for that.
How is that compared to, like, let's say ayahuasca or something like that?
Psychedelics have different effects. They're not all the same,
Okay.
and they act on different parts of your brain and your nervous system.
Okay.
So, Ibogaine works on the opiate receptors. It also works on the NMDA receptors, which are involved in plasticity of the brain, and they're also involved in serotonin and norepinephrine reuptake inhibitors. So Ibogaine kind of works on those systems. Ayahuasca is more mescaline, and it works more on the serotonin transporters and serotonin receptors.
Got you. Okay.
So, so they're different systems, and we don't quite know what's going on with those systems. We need more research in that area, but the subjective experience of the two psychedelics is different. So,
Right.
the trip or the journey that you go on with ayahuasca lasts maybe 8 hours or so.
Right.
And there's purging, like we talked about. So like sometimes you'll vomit or have diarrhea, like to
Oh
get
my
to
gosh.
purge
Got you.
with the ayahuasca, and it's part of the cleansing ceremony. Whereas Ibogaine lasts much longer. So the journey lasts 2 days, if it maybe even
That
longer.
is definitely a journey.
Oh,
So
wow. 2 days?
Wow.
It can last
Okay.
2 days.
And
It's
what's
very
happening
long.
to them in those 2 days?
So
The patient.
what's interesting about Ibogaine is it induces a dreamlike state
Okay.
where it's called a wondergen is what it's called. So it basically induces a dreamlike state where you relive your life, significant moments in your life where you interacted with your loved ones and family and friends. And maybe you didn't do it skillfully and you had made mistakes or something, and you learn to regret that, but you kind of bury those things. But the Ibogaine brings it back out, and you see yourself from third person going through those events, and you see like, oh wow, that really hurt that person, and I did that, and now I understand what I did.
Is
So like
it
for someone,
reflective for the person, like something they did wrong, or is it reflective, like if they just had general trauma from a situation, and like a child that's abused, for example, and goes through all their life and then somehow becomes addicted to drugs because they're trying to bury something that they felt? Would that unbury that and make them look at the world from a different perspective?
it's really interesting. So the military work that I was telling you about, the veterans that had post-traumatic stress disorder, so they're the ones that really championed Ibogaine. So there's a documentary called In Waves and War by the group from Stanford that did the study in the veterans. And in that documentary, you can listen to the veterans talk. And one of them had this really compelling story. He was like, I went into this journey thinking, okay, I'm going to relive my battles because he was stationed in Afghanistan, doing in firefights, having people shoot at him, shooting at other people. And he said, like, I thought that was going to be what I was going to work through. And he said, no, actually the Ibogaine brought out my childhood trauma.
Really?
And that was what needed to be worked on.
Oh,
And he
wow.
found out that was what the Ibogaine healed him with. And so it's not necessarily what you think. Going into it, you may think you're going to have a certain experience, but they say that it varies.
So this,
And when you come back to consciousness, I guess, so
Yeah.
to speak, does it help? Do you remember and then you say, I'm in a different place now that I've gone through that experience?
Yeah, a lot of people that take Ibogaine will say that it's a very transformative experience, very spiritual. A lot of people will say they talk to God or whoever they believe is their higher power. They will say, I interacted with that higher power. I had a very spiritual experience. And they'll mark it as one of the top 2 or 3 experiences in their life to date.
Wow.
So it's very powerful and very impactful.
the thing that I find so interesting about what you're saying is, I know I've talked to you a little bit about my friend Jeannie Ballard. She's a holistic healer, and she'll talk about this stuff like past childhood traumas, but family, beyond that, like family traumas that happened before that person had their trauma. And of course, she'll correct me. I'm sure there's actually defined wording for what I'm talking about, and she would be able to discuss that. But it sounds similar to what you're talking about, though, like when you're saying that the person is healing over a very specific trauma, maybe a trauma that they don't realize they're going to go in and heal when they take Ibogaine. Am I saying it right? I want to make sure I say that right. Ibogaine. So I find that very fascinating because there's a lot of people that have a harder time understanding holistic healing, I think. And then when you start doing something like Ibogaine, I think those two worlds are going to like cross. I really think, that if somebody's having a hard time handling life or getting past certain things because they have these generational traumas that come up, that maybe something like that drug could stop the person from having that and thus having a different breakthrough from an energy standpoint.
Do you think, I'm trying to wrap my head around, when you go into Ibogaine, when you're going into that realm, that your brain is choosing which experience to deal with?
We don't know the answer to that question, but my guess is that the people that do Ibogaine and they come and say their experience, a lot of times they will say the Ibogaine has a power of its own and it knows what to do. It knows how to heal you. And so I don't think the Ibogaine is actually, structurally doing that. I think it's probably aspects of your own state of mind that are subconscious that you don't quite know about, that you might be repressing. And that is like a target for the Ibogaine, and it unlocks it.
Right.
But it's a question. There's only been one clinical brain imaging study of Ibogaine, so there's very little data on how it works.
How did you decide to do a trial like that? Like, how did you come up with one Ibogaine? Like, I'm gonna try this. I mean, how did that all come? Like, I'm imagining you're reading a ton of stuff. I know you like to read things, and your job sort of lends itself to wanting to research things, right? But how did you decide that?
Yeah, like I started at UC Irvine in the Integrative Health Institute there, the Susan Simula Integrative Health Institute. And I decided when I took that job that I wanted to devote the remainder of my academic career to studying integrative therapies. And when I was a researcher at Michigan, I had experienced shamanism and doing shamanic journey work. And I did that sort of outside of my academic setting. I would go on shamanic journeys, and I found them to be very powerful. And then I wanted to study them. And so I did one study at Michigan looking at shamanic practitioners' brains when they undergo the altered state of consciousness with just drumming music. You don't have to take Ibogaine or ayahuasca or peyote or whatever. You can just enter the altered state of consciousness with drumming. And so I did a study at Michigan with that. and looking at the brain. It was very interesting. We got really neat results. And when I took this job at UC Irvine, I was like, okay, I'm going to study shamanism more. And it wasn't until I saw a documentary on TV about Ibogaine that I was like, wow, I'd never heard of that Ibogaine. I'd never heard of it before. And then one of my study healers, who does energy healing, so I also do energy healing work. So one of my energy healers spoke to me and said, hey, look, I tried this Ibogaine and it changed my life.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, well, then I'm going to read more about Ibogaine. And then I just started reading paper after paper, and I was like, wow, this has really got some interesting, powerful effects, and we have no knowledge about how it's working. And so that's why I got interested in it. And the fact that a lot of Ibogaine is used for opioid addiction or other addictions. And then I was very interested in that because there's obviously the opioid epidemic that we have in the US. And I thought this might be a really nice way to address that issue. Wow. And like combine everything together. And so that's kind of how I fell into it.
Did the shamans, were their brains, do they look different?
Yes.
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 I'm super curious about that. Like, they must look different. Is it an MRI scan that you're doing?
We just did.
See what they look like?
Yeah, we just did EEG. So
Okay.
There's been one study with MRI of shamans, and they show altered activity in these areas like that are called the insula and the default mode network.
Okay.
So like these areas that are involved in cognition are differently activated in shamans. What we found was that connectivity between different brain areas was changed with the shamans, specifically during the drumming music, not when there was a classical music control period. So it was specific to drumming.
Really?
And the altered states that they reported were as dramatic as being on either psilocybin or MDMA or ketamine, like all the psychedelics. We were getting the same response out of our shamans as drumming. Like from just simply listening to drumming as folks that were taking like MDMA and ketamine and psilocybin and stuff were getting. So I thought that was very fascinating.
Was it a particular kind of drumming?
It is a particular kind of drumming. It's about 5 hertz is the frequency. So like this is the frequency of the drumming. And if it's higher than that or lower than that, you tend to not get the altered state. And then what's really funny is that when you look across cultures on the planet, they all of them use drumming, and they all use that same frequency. Wow. They don't use, even though they evolved like in separate parts of the world over different time periods. It's really interesting.
That is super
Is that frequency like how like an Indian tribe would play?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
That same drum.
Yeah, exactly.
Can you believe what a 360-degree circle moment? You know, here the Indians knew what it was all about in the beginning. You know?
Peyote was you mentioned that. Like if you watch, remember did you see the movie Young Guns?
Yep.
Right.
We're in the dream world.
We're in the spirit world. You can't see us. Yeah, right. But that's peyote.
That is peyote. Yes.
And they definitely went into the spirit world.
And peyote is legal for Native Americans in the Native American Church.
Wow.
They can use peyote for spiritual, just like Christians drink wine and eat the wafer or whatever. And Native Americans can use peyote legally.
So they give them a pass for that.
We've
done also do it on Indian land most of the time, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So on their land, they make the rules, basically.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Wow. That's crazy.
That is.
I mean, in a good way. What's the name of it again? I just totally forgot.
Ibogaine. Yeah, Ibogaine. Yeah.
Does that help cure somebody who's opioid addiction and for some people?
Yeah. So there's been a number of open labeled studies, which means like, you're getting the Ibogaine. There's no other control. There's like no placebo control. You just know you're getting the Ibogaine, and we're just seeing how it does. Like we're seeing if, you get better. So with opioid addiction, Ibogaine is very powerful at reducing that addiction and eliminating it, and it almost reworks it so you don't have the addiction anymore. So like one session of Ibogaine can take someone who's addicted to heroin that injects daily, can turn someone abstinent for a year, like after that.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So the numbers are like 70% are abstinent after a month, and then like 50% are abstinent after half a year, and then like 30% are abstinent a year out.
Do they have to take the
No, they just
Ibogaine
take
for
it once.
30?
They
Just one time?
Just one
Just one
session.
pill?
Just one
One
session.
pill?
One pill.
Wow.
But it's 2 days, right?
Right.
But like
Okay.
it's just one treatment.
Wow. Okay.
And so that's really powerful considering the treatments that we have through the Western medical paradigm
Right.
is to use like buprenorphine or Suboxone, like we were talking about,
Yeah,
or
like another
methadone,
drug.
which basically is just another opioid that you get addicted to.
Wow.
And so if you do that, the number of people that relapse, go back on their opioid of addiction after a month of being on of Suboxone daily, the percentage is 80%.
Wow.
80% of people will go back to their
Really?
go back to their addiction.
So like a Matthew Perry, for example,
Yeah.
on ketamine,
Yeah.
this could have potentially been something that could have helped him, right?
Yeah, there haven't been many studies on Ibogaine for ketamine, but I wouldn't be surprised if it helped with that addiction.
When I was reading a little bit about the study and everything, you actually see something on the actual scans of the brain, right? Like something with the white matter of the brain, right? Did I read that correctly?
So there's been a couple of studies looking at Ibogaine for structural white matter tracks, and they've been a case study where basically you just follow a couple patients that take it and you see how they do. So these were 2 patients that had multiple sclerosis, so they had white matter lesions in their brain, and they just took a few microdoses of Ibogaine, and the lesions went away, which is really remarkable. One interesting thing is that when people take Ibogaine, sometimes they say they can feel their brain growing. They can feel their brain like changing,
Really?
and like they can actually feel it.
Worked
I
on
don't
cancer.
know. I don't know.
You're like,
I know.
it's growing. My head can't fit it. No.
That's
Man.
amazing.
Is there a downside?
So Ibogaine has cardiotoxicity, so it can affect the heart rate. It binds to this channel, which is what controls electrical activity in cells, or these channels in the membrane. And the way your heart beats, it involves channels opening and closing. And Ibogaine happens to block a specific potassium channel, which can cause arrhythmias or heart attacks. And so if you're ever going to try Ibogaine, you need to get tested and make sure you don't have what's called a prolonged QT interval, and you don't have history of certain heart issues in your family. I don't know exactly what all of those are, but like if you talk to a physician, that's in the know, they can tell you.
What does the
so
magnesium component do? So
magnesium blocks the potassium channels, and so it like regulates the heart rate. So it protects the heart so that the Ibogaine doesn't have its effect on the channel.
So if somebody has that particular arrhythmia with their heart, could they still do the study if they take the magnesium, or are they just blocked out because there's too high of a risk of having a heart attack?
Right now, if you were in a study looking at Ibogaine's effects, you probably would be excluded from being in the trial because it's just too risky right now, especially given the history of psychedelics in the U.S. Like we were just saying, there was this ban on psychedelic research because just say no, it was all these drugs are horrible and they're all addictive and blah blah blah. So we want to try to put our best foot forward and be the safest as we can before we do risky things.
It's interesting because you find it in nature, right?
What's really interesting is the
the
psychedelics are in your own brain. There are certain psychedelics that we know that are in your brain just naturally.
Oh gosh, don't tell my husband.
That explains it.
He'll be like, yeah, that's what happened to her. And he's there when something psychedelic.
And so then how does it trigger those things? Or I guess you kind of don't really know that answer, but there's obviously something in it that helps trigger those psychedelics within your brain, right?
Yeah, my guess is that some things like the drumming that we were talking about, I bet you the drumming untaps some of your endogenous or your naturally occurring transmitters. Some of them may be the psychedelic transmitters, and that might be why people have those sensations, even simply by the drumming.
Wow.
So I'm wondering if
How
this-
that works, and if that's the case, I don't know, but it's something we'd like to understand.
I think that's so cool.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if this can go beyond, just what you're doing with opioids, right? Addiction.
Mm-hmm.
Like, could that go beyond to help people? Because I think the medical community, Western medicine in particular, kind of ignores like the soul and the brain. I think there's a big, just from what I've experienced after getting a disease, you start to realize, oh, wait a second, there's a lot of like pushing of medicine, but not necessarily something that would alter the way that your brain functions and ultimately how you think and then how your soul responds to it. Because I think those two things in particular can help you eradicate other things that are going wrong with you. And so I'm curious if that drug, I know right now you're utilizing that to, stop addiction and stuff, but it's clearly having a real physical effect on the brain.
Any patient or anybody who's had a life-threatening condition, medical condition, I think will probably engage in spiritual discussion within themselves and maybe with others as well. There may be a spiritual component to the illness. I don't think everybody has that, but I think a lot of us do. Right. And, when you're faced with the end of your life or you're faced with these big questions, it's just natural to like call out to a higher power and say, hey, I need some help.
Yeah.
But hey, that's something Western medicine doesn't give.
Right.
Like you never go to your Western doctor and say,
Hey.
I had this, thing and the spiritual encounter, and I think I'm missing this aspect of my life, and spirituality is part of my life. Can you help me? And who is there that's going to help you? That's a Western trained physician.
Almost
We have nothing. We have nothing in our toolbox for that. We have like psychologists that can do talk therapy, but you probably have to go to your pastor or somebody if you want to really get at the spiritual stuff.
But I think UCI in particular is sort of embarking more on that
We're
sort of
totally
stuff.
embarking
You're
on
embarking on it.
Yeah.
I go there.
Yeah.
That's like my place where my oncology people are. And just the minute you walk in to that facility, it just feels like, okay, this is going to sound very self-important, but it feels like a spa.
Yeah.
It does. It gives the way that they've constructed the building and the way that it feels, I think has 100% to do with how you make a patient of any kind feel when they walk into the facility. It doesn't feel clinical, like people are going to poke you with needles. It feels like you're going to get a massage, and that's good for your brain to think like that. To think
we're
like
transforming into that in a lot of ways. Like, for instance, even at the gym in Franklin, they have a longevity center inside.
Oh, Franklin's ahead of us.
Yeah. So when you walk in there, it's like the GLP-1s and like all the things are kind of inside the building now and it makes you feel that way. Like you were saying, when you walk in, like, oh, it feels like a spa, or I'm going to take a yoga class, or I'm at a retreat and about to do a sound bath. Puts you in a spiritual consciousness to help the healing process. Because I just read a book called You Are the Placebo, right? Which is telling your brain that you are being healed, right? So going into a consciousness that's also telling you similar things, I find fascinating, right? Because if you can say, it doesn't hurt, it doesn't hurt, right? If you tell your brain it doesn't hurt, it doesn't hurt. So when you watch movies and they're trying to tap into your like neurological system, basically you're tapping into your brain, so your brain can tell your body that you're fine.
Interesting.
It's not black or white. 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 With Tim Stevenson and Diane Blakely. Not black or white. It's not black or white with Tim Stevenson and Diane Blakely.